Hey guys, welcome to the first full episode of the Neowin podcast. And thanks to everybody for all the feedback that we've received over the last 2 weeks for our beta episodes. I'm Rich Woods.
And I'm Jean Carrasqueira. And
And we have a ton of stuff to talk about today.
yeah,
By the way, I'm reading these show notes in OneNote, and it has dark theme now, which is
yeah,
incredible.
yeah, it's awesome. And actually, I saw the news back when they were announced this week, and I didn't get it. And today, just now, I opened it up so we could start
Me
recording
too.
that. And it's dark now.
And I've been at Build all week, so I was complaining to the OneNote guys. I'm like, why don't I have this? I want this. This is all I want. So now I got home and I booted up my desktop this morning and it's there. And what's cool about it is that it actually follows your system settings, whereas so many Microsoft apps just leave you at light theme and you have to turn on the setting to have it reflect your system settings. So I
that
just turned it on and it was dark mode.
yeah, that's nice. And that's a complaint I heard you make the other day. It's so
Yeah,
obvious. Like if you have this automatic option, why is it
that's
not
what everyone
enabled by
else does.
default? But
That's what
I
I
don't.
mean, you're turning on dark mode in your OS settings. You would think that the apps would know that you want those to be dark mode as well.
Makes no
So
sense.
yeah, it's what everyone else does. But it's nice. I just turned it on. It's in dark mode. So we don't have to talk about this later. That's something that started shipping to Office Insiders earlier this week, and it should be fully rolled out today to insiders.
Yeah, I mean, if we got it now, it's likely that most people have it as well.
Yeah. Well, all Office all one. I don't know if it's Office Insiders or OneNote Insiders, but they should have it. I don't think if you turn on insider builds in OneNote, I don't know if you get insider builds for all of Office because OneNote kind of stands on its own. That's whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's separate, so probably not. But I
So
don't know.
let's talk about Build. It's been a busy week. We had Build and Google I/O, two major developer conferences with a lot of news coming out of both. And
Yeah,
first on the list is Edge, and that Edge kind of stole the show.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and we knew they were gonna. They're the new hot thing, and the guys at the Edge booth they had these Edge Dev T-shirts, and they weren't giving them out as swag, and I was so upset. Zach Bowden has one, and I was so mad at him.
understandably.
I wanted that
When
T-shirt
he,
so bad.
yeah,
And then
because
one of the guys on the team, Will Devereaux, used to be with OneNote. He says, "Oh no, it's personalized because his name's Devereaux and it said Dev." He's like, "Oh no, it's just my name."
that's a good excuse.
Yeah. So few the things they announced coming to Edge is IE mode. So basically how Edge works right now is Windows 10 ships with Edge and Internet Explorer, and if you open something that needs Internet Explorer, it opens Internet Explorer. And the problem with that is that a lot of people never end up going back to Edge. They just keep using Internet Explorer. So now Internet Explorer is just going to open within a tab in the new Edge. Another thing they announced is privacy controls where you can set it to strict, unrestricted, and balanced. Balance is the default, and that's all about third party tracking. And then the third thing they announced is collections, which is basically just gathering content from around the web and saving it in various collections. What do you think?
Okay, so IE mode is great, and
Yeah.
it's about time because we had for a while we had this when they first announced Chromium Edge, a lot of people said that they were gonna ask if there were gonna be three browsers now,
But they've
and
confirmed that they won't ship three browsers. They won't confirm that they're not shipping Internet Explorer.
yeah, they say they're gonna maintain it, but I do wonder if they're just since Internet Explorer is already an optional feature, so you can go to optional features in Windows 10 and you can disable it. I wonder
That's
if
true.
they'll keep including it, but just have it disabled by default, maybe, and then
That
gradually maybe move towards removing it entirely.
That's a good idea. I mean, well, what they would have to do is it's really businesses that are using Internet Explorer for compatibility. So really, they need those enterprises to kind of sign off on this new feature and say, hey, this is good. So we don't need Internet Explorer as a separate browser anymore.
Yeah, so initially they might not remove IE at all. They're just gonna keep it around so business can like make that transition. And
It would
then
make sense keep
eventually,
it disabled by default, and then oh
so yeah, I was just saying that they may remove it entirely later on, but for now they'll just disable it probably.
yeah.
And yeah, now you were saying about macOS. Yeah, they showed it off for the first time also at Build. Looks pretty much
Yeah,
like
for the
how you'd
first time,
expect.
they yeah, well, it is. They had it at the booth. You could go up there, you could play with it. They'll have it in Canary and Dev, and yeah, it's exactly like it is on Windows, except the one thing that's going to be different. Because I asked them, I said, "Is there anything that's going to be different about this?" They said, "No, it's exactly the same." I said, "What about IE mode?" They said, "Well, not IE mode." Yeah,
Yeah,
and it kind of makes sense, right? Because there's no IE on Mac, and
yeah, Mac users
so
don't care.
no one's going to need that kind of compatibility on Mac. And they did say that if they get a ton of feedback saying, "Hey, we need this," that they'll build it. This
Yeah,
team is
but
very. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, but I don't think that'll happen for IE mode. It's like you were
I
saying.
don't
No,
think so.
no
Yeah.
one cares. I don't think anyone
Yeah.
cares.
They're very focused on feedback. They're doing a lot of things that if people ask for it, they'll do it. What's the thing that I found weird is just that they keep announcing features when kind of the core stuff isn't done. There's like the stuff they promised in the beginning, ARM 64 support, Mac OS, Windows 7, 8.1, dark mode, all that stuff is it's just that like they have to release this thing at some point, right? At some point, they have to
Yeah.
stop announcing new features and then get it out the door and then add new features. So,
Yeah. You think
but
it'll be out by like 1909 with Windows 10 1909, or do you think it will come
I
later?
they won't commit to anything, but I would bet that they're targeting that, and I don't think 1909 will allow you to uh, uninstall Edge Spartan because 1909 is going to have very few changes from 1903. It's going to come. It's going to be a cumulative update. I'm 99% sure of it.
Yeah, that's the only explanation you could have for the way they're testing 20H1 right now. So
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I don't think they're going to increase the major build number. So another thing that we had is that Edge might be coming to Linux, and I always have a list of questions that I want to ask when I go to events, and one of them was Linux and Chrome OS support because obviously we have Edge on Android. They have Android apps on Chrome OS, and you can't install it on Chrome OS. So I started asking around why that is, and if maybe it's coming to Linux because you could run Linux apps on Chrome OS as well. And then they just showed it in a slide. Like I asked them about the slide later though, and they're like, "Oh, we're just evaluating those platforms." And all right, but it does seem like it very much seems like Edge is coming to Linux,
It makes
which is
sense. I
fine.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
They want it to be everywhere, and they especially want it to be everywhere that developers are. And there's a lot of developers on Linux. They talked a lot about about how that's why they wanted to come to Mac OS because if you want developers to use your browser, you have to be on a Mac. So I think you have to be on Linux as well.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I would guess there are more developers maybe on Linux than on Mac. No, I don't. I mean, I'm
Maybe.
not sure. I'm not familiar with the developer scenario, but I would
I'm not
assume
a big
so.
Linux guy. Those that
Yeah,
know me know.
yeah, not me either. I'm just assuming.
Yeah,
Uh,
they showed a little bit of a roadmap in those sessions too, and the PDF inking stuff is coming. The web page markup stuff doesn't seem to be coming, and again, they're looking at feedback. So well, one guy told me that PDF inking makes a lot of sense. Annotating and marking up PDFs makes sense, and then but if you want to mark up a web page, just remember that was one of the key features of Edge Spartan when it first came out. And if you want that, you have to kind of decide what you want to do. Do you just want to take a picture of the web page and write on it? Because then you could just use the snipping tool or a snip and sketch. Or do you want an interactive web page? And that kind of needs further discussion. So
Yeah, that's the thing, because when they announced it first for Edge, they made it seem like it was going to be an interactive web page and you could write on it
Right.
and you can share it. But that didn't turn out to be the case, at least in my experience. I tried to annotate
No,
web pages and that never really worked that way.
it just takes like a screenshot, right?
Yeah, so I don't
At
think it
least it
makes
used to. Never
sense.
tried it again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's also
So
true.
yeah. So what he was getting at though was that if you want this, file feedback, decide what you want, and like I said, the team is very focused on feedback, and they're listening. So if people want stuff, they can ask for it.
Yeah, one feature I
No.
really like from the ones that might not even be coming is set aside tabs. I actually don't use it that much, but this week I was writing this article. I needed a lot of tabs open to see what I was looking at. And sometimes I
Um.
wanted to close the browser and I couldn't because I would have to open all of those tabs again. It was the only
Yeah.
time I realized, you know what, this is be really useful right now.
You
And
know. You know. You know what though? They announced the collections feature they announced could be the sort of replacement for that.
if it is, I'm all for it. I could really use it. I actually installed an extension now that does kind of the same
Oh
thing,
yeah.
just in
Cool.
case. So
Cool. So we had a leaked Edge beta build, and I'm not sure why anyone would install it. Did you install it? I mean, I installed it, obviously, but
yeah,
I'm not sure why anyone else would install it unless you just want the icon. Did you install it?
yeah, I did. And
Yeah.
interestingly enough, next up we have this new Edge dev build that I added there, and
Yeah.
the Edge beta also got an update on the same day. But
Oh,
it's
did
not
it?
the it did, but it's not the same update that Edge Dev got. So it's already getting these
Right.
stabilizing updates. I'm guessing they were already preparing for public release because it's not the same update that Edge Dev got. It's some more.
That's that's interesting. Well, because one thing I was curious about is that sometimes these leaked builds just don't get updates, and so that's cool that it did. But that I mean, they're not releasing Edge beta, this week or next week. This is not the build that the public's going to get. Like, if Canary, if you're sitting there and saying no, Canary and Dev are too unstable for me. I'm going to wait for beta. Like, why would you install this leaked build?
Yeah, that's true. But like I said, they're getting the stabilization updates apparently. So maybe it's not
Yeah.
worth it right now probably. But there's that point. If it's getting updates, then it's just a way to get it on it early.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so you want to talk about that new dev build that you mentioned? I see we're on Chromium 76 now.
Yeah, so that was one of the changes they made. So the dev channel has been in the Chromium 75 channel version for a couple of weeks. Now
Yeah,
they
since its
upgrade.
first update, right?
Yeah, actually, I think the first dev build
Yeah.
was still on 74.
Right.
I
The
mean,
first dev build was 74, and I think the first update was 75.
exactly. So it's been
Yeah.
on 75 since then, and now it's 76. And it's also the biggest update I think we've got for dev so far because there's a lot of changes here. There's
Yeah.
obviously spell check, which I think was mentioned last week for the Canary ring, or earlier this week, I'm not sure.
Hmm.
And then some slight redesigns in the favorites page, some very small stuff. What I had to do to see if anything actually happened, I just opened Dev and Canary side by like full screen, and I just alt tabbed between them to see if I could spot any changes because it's so small. So I just had the pages open on different versions, and I was switching between them to see if I could spot anything that was different. So it's very slight tweaks, nothing big.
Yeah.
And and yeah,
Little stuff.
yeah, improved logic for the new tab page, those quick links that show up. Support for audio decoding for some more formats apparently. I've never had any issues with media playback, but uh, if you had, this might help. And yeah, there's also a lot of bug fixes and stuff regarding dark mode, so they're working on it. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, the dark mode is one of those things. It's been in there since the beginning, but you got to turn on the flag, and I don't. I believe it's still not on. I believe you still have to turn on the flag, right?
Yeah, it's still not. available in the settings anywhere. It doesn't work by itself. You have to go into the flags still. But they're making improvements to it. I guess they're working on it.
Sure.
So
I haven't used it since that original leaked build. It was I had some problems with it, and I haven't used it since.
oh, you haven't been using dark mode?
No, maybe I should. I mean, it's yeah, why not?
Yeah, I haven't been having any problems with it anymore. I think there was some issues where you would have dark text on a dark background, maybe something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
But I haven't seen any of that recently, so it's getting better.
Cool. All right, that's enough of Edge. But I mean, we're all excited about it, and I mean, I haven't seen this much excitement in so long, so you know it's worth talking about. There was so much Edge news, and I do think it kind of stole the show. So Mary Jo Foley had a story about how the title is Microsoft wants to close the UWP Win32 divide with Windows apps. And so the idea, and I have been noticing this trend for a long time. I guess it's kind of official, where Microsoft doesn't really talk about UWP much anymore. I've noticed a big Win32 focus. Recently, they brought Win32 to Windows Mixed Reality, and like they just seem to be bringing Win32 to other platforms rather than just having those run UWP. Like remember that was the original value proposition of UWP, right? Which was all Windows 10 devices. So now they're bringing UWP features to Win32, and it's just going to be Windows apps. We're not going to talk about Win32 and UWP anymore. It's just going to be one big thing.
Yeah, and they first talked about this last year already. They already used that term Windows apps, that we shouldn't make that distinction between UWP and WinForms and all that. They said that I think they used that exact expression last year when they announced the XAML islands, that feature that brought the UWP sort of UI to own Windows apps. They already used that expression, and I think it's a good thing. You know.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it just I think it's kind of a confusing message though, where well, I guess it's simple in the way that it's just Windows apps, but you have two app platforms. UWP was supposed to be the future. It turns out it's not the future, and it is kind of backtracking a little bit.
Yeah, they said they shouldn't have gone the way of trying to force that. They did admit that. I think Mary Jo says that in the article. Yeah, we shouldn't have gone that way.
You know what's kind of funny though, is that they said this when Windows 10 launched too, because with Windows 8 they tried to force everyone to, you know, it was all or nothing. You couldn't get the full screen Windows 8 apps unless you did this. You couldn't get in the store unless you did this. And then with Windows 10 they were like, okay, we shouldn't have tried to force you to do that. So we're going to let anybody in the store. You know, Win32 apps can go in the store. If you want to be on more devices, you got to use UWP. And now they're still realizing that they tried too hard to push everyone in one direction.
Yeah, so they're slowly opening up. And it could be seen as a failure for the platform. Of course, it kind of is.
A lot of people are seeing it as a failure.
Of course, I mean, if it had worked, if people had gotten on board, I don't think Microsoft would have backtracked like that. So that's obvious. But
well, you could never expect everyone to rewrite their app.
Yeah, it's a lot of effort, and that's why I think it's a good thing that Microsoft is changing their mind a little bit and allowing people to slowly make that transition to the new technologies and the UWP stuff. So they say the UWP isn't dead, and in a sense, I think they're right, because if you're bringing these features to all platforms, you're just allowing developers to make that transition more slowly. I think that's the way I see it, maybe.
Well, that was their first thing they started talking about maybe a year and a half or so ago, where they started saying like they started saying you could slowly make the transition. Now they I guess they probably want you to make the transition, but they're not actually saying that. They're just saying you can put UWP elements in your Win32 apps with XAML islands.
Yeah, it's a more less sort of pressurizing approach, in which they're just like highlighting the advantages of using certain UWP elements and saying that you can do this now differently, instead of saying you should do this so you can this or that. So you have the choice. You have these new things that you can do, but you can also stick with your own things if you want. And I guess that freedom might convince people to, be a little more open to trying it without feeling that pressure of like, we have to do this and to be relevant or something.
Yeah. Well, we had some Cortana improvements. What they showed off was really cool. You watched the video, right?
I did, and I gotta be honest, I was really annoyed.
You were what?
I was annoyed by it at some point. I mean, it's cool. Of course, the technology is amazing, but I was
Right.
annoyed because they
They
went.
showed first of all they showed a full conversation between a person and Cortana. And much more natural language than we're used to, where you could call things in your calendar without saying like the specific name for the event, like cancel my meeting this afternoon, and the event would say meeting with this person, and you would say reschedule it for tomorrow, and then say here are some open slots in your schedule. It would say 9:30 and 10 o'clock, and you can say, hey, what about the afternoon? And then it would show you some new things, and it was a whole conversation. And what's hard about that is that with AI, the possibilities of where the conversation is going to go get exponentially more complicated the longer the conversation goes. So, I mean, it is pretty impressive. But go on and tell me what annoyed you about the video now.
It is definitely impressive. It's very impressive, and how far it can go to pick up the context from the rest of the conversation and get all of your data. It's amazing. What I hated about it was the demo was just started feeling like it was so long. It was like after the 15th third of the conversation, I was just thinking, we get it. It works great. Just stop. That's enough.
I texted somebody during the briefing, and I was like, well, is this a demo on how to be the most annoying person in the office? Because who wants to talk to their device that much when you could just pull out your phone and just reschedule it manually in less time, to be honest.
Yeah, probably it would be faster. It's cool, but it's just you're talking longly in the middle of an office and walking around the whole place.
Yeah.
Just it's just too long. I think it was too long.
I think we can agree that it's very impressive. I'm just not, to be honest, I'm not sold on voice assistants in general because I don't use them, because wherever I am, it's just easier to use my device in a more traditional way.
Yeah, and the same could be said for the assistant stuff that Google showed off at I/O. That
Yeah.
they were switching between apps, open maps, take me here, take me there. You
Yeah,
can
they
do
did the
that.
conversational thing as well, and I honestly I didn't find it nearly as impressive, but still I just don't, I would never do it.
Yeah, it's pointless. No one wants to be talking to their phone in the middle of like anywhere where people can hear them.
Right.
That's awkward.
That's the thing. Even when
So
I'm by myself, though, I'm in front of a laptop or a desktop, and it's just easier for me to use a mouse and keyboard to do what I want to do instead of. But I mean, I also understand more natural language, more conversational abilities, and if it becomes more natural to do it, it could be useful for people that want to.
yeah, I think the idea is that we are maybe more comfortable with using our phones and stuff, and for people who this might be aimed at, they just don't want to have to use their phones the same way as much. Maybe they just want to talk and have it done by them for them,
Yeah.
so they don't have to. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's a possibility.
All
They
right.
also
Next
showed
up,
off that demo. Oh, yeah, we
go
had
ahead. Go
that
ahead.
demo with the BMW. The BMW also had that demo because Microsoft is making it possible for other people to use this sort of conversational framework. And
Oh,
I
I
don't
did
know
not
if you
see that.
what you didn't. Okay, I thought
Yeah.
it was part of the keynote. So yeah, they had this BMW demo where BMW built an assistant into their cars, and you could ask it to like schedule sort of mechanic services and stuff. And it
Oh,
worked pretty
okay.
much the same way. Just a continuous conversation where you asked, "Can you schedule it for this day at this time?" And it kept going. It didn't feel as natural as Cortana itself, but it worked. So that was interesting.
Nice. Yeah, I might have been busy for that. I was running around a lot this week, and there was a lot going on. So they announced Windows Terminal and Windows Subsystem for Linux 2. That both of them are very exciting if you're into those types of thing. I'm not a command line guy, but the
Yeah, that's we're
did you
not the
watch
right
the
people.
teaser video for Windows Terminal?
No, I did not. I think it's on Twitter, but for some reason I never played.
Oh my God. So
But
if anybody's listening to this, go find the Windows Terminal teaser video. It's amazing because they made it like a Surface Sizzler video. They had the music and I watched this and I'm like, oh man, I need to learn how to use the terminal. It's just the most exciting it's the most exciting video and you're sitting there like, guys, this is terminal. So Windows Terminal,
um,
it has transparency. The whole thing is transparent. Emoji support. I believe it's a full UWP app. It's going to come through the store. It's open source, and if you contribute to it, your code might end up in Windows. Um, yeah, and then you have Windows Subsystem for Linux 2, which is obviously the first major update to WSL. And Microsoft is actually shipping a Linux kernel with the OS now.
yeah, for the first time. That's insane. Think about the
It's insane.
likelihood of that. Think about the likelihood of that happening 3 years ago.
I know.
Three. You could think three. So 3 years ago, Microsoft shipping a Linux kernel in Windows. That would be just outrageous.
I know.
But they're doing
It's
it.
wild. They are
And
doing it.
yeah, and they're promising up to 20 times the speed for certain tasks. If you look at the dev log, it said up to 20 times the speed for unloading. I think it was a tar file or something like that. I don't know if I
Yeah.
can get to that right now, but
Yeah. Yeah. So
and
these are coming to insiders in June. I once again I assume 20H1. I don't think it'll be 19H2. I don't think anything's. I really think 19H2 is just going to be a cumulative update. So I assume it'll be in the fast ring 20H1 builds.
yeah, that's great. I mean, I again, I'm not using it, but I'm assuming that for people who use this, it's awesome.
Yeah. I'm not a Linux guy.
Yeah, me neither.
So
Not at all.
I'm a Windows guy. So there's that. We had a couple more things from builds is fluid framework and ideas for Word. So fluid framework it's a web app and it's to break down the barriers of the traditional document as we know it. And they're promising co-authoring at speeds never before achieved. And that basically they want to, I guess, redefine what a document is. So that it's going to be available later on this year. I didn't get to demo it. That they there wasn't a lot of Office stuff out on the show floor. The other thing was that ideas in Word is they called it your AI powered editor in the cloud or whatever, and that should give you suggestions while you're writing to write better stuff, I guess.
Yeah, so the fluid framework, I read the announcement you wrote, and
Yeah.
I actually had to look it up separately because I wasn't getting like what was so different about it. So I had to try to find demo videos from Build because I didn't see it anywhere
Yeah.
either. So I went to try to look, and yeah, it's pretty much just imagining co-authoring, but the way we have it kind of in the Office apps right now, but just much faster, and so much
Yeah.
so that you can the one of the demos I thought was interesting is you had this, I think it was an Excel file or something, and
Mhm.
then or a table or something like that, and then they sent that table through Microsoft Teams, and they could edit it in Excel, but the people in Teams could also co-author it from Teams, and it just all synced together at the same time. It's all in real time.
Sure.
I thought that was pretty cool the way it worked so fast, and you can just have it like embedded into anything you're using, so you can share it with people and anyone can work on it without shifting away from what you're using right now.
Absolutely. And
I think that's
Microsoft is a company that understands productivity, and not much else. So they're good at stuff like this. This is actually pretty exciting.
I was very impressed. The first time I saw the announcement, I wasn't sure what it was, so I was wondering what is it. But then I looked it up and I saw those demos, and I was, wow, that's pretty cool.
Nice, nice. Um, yeah, and then all right, so that's enough about build. That pretty much sums up the headlines from builds. We got a new Windows 10 Insider preview and a new SDK preview. You want to talk about that?
Okay, so the Windows 10, the 28th preview, the build that we got for insiders, the actual OS, is build 18894. And the only new stuff we have, it's the first time we have new stuff for one thing in the 28th ring. So far, it's been very minor
Pretty
things.
much. Yeah.
So this is the first time we have new things. It's this new search experience that actually has these search results with icons and all that. So it looks much more like the rest of Windows 10. It has this sort of more Windows 10-ish feel, more like the search experience in the search box and all that. I don't have it. This is for just for a subset of Windows insiders. I updated it. I don't have that.
Oh,
So
is it? I haven't updated to the new build yet because, I mean, I just got home at around 11 o'clock last night, and I woke up today and we started recording. So there's not a lot of stuff that I've had a chance to catch up on since I got home. So it's just for a subset of insiders. So you don't have it yet.
yeah,
All
I
right,
haven't been able to try it. It looks
that's
pretty
a bummer
nice.
since it's the only new feature.
Yeah. I just don't deserve anything. That's fine. It's
It's because you're in Portugal.
exactly exactly. It always comes down to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Then we had a new
And then
SDK preview.
yeah, so that's the first one in the 20H1 ring. So that's nice. It's a little early, I think, for the first
Um,
SDK for an update that's coming next year. I don't know how early they usually come leading up to the release.
well, we've never had insider preview builds this early
Yeah,
before.
that's also true.
I
So
mean, again, like that once again makes me ask about 19H2. Like that really got me thinking about it when I saw that this thing came out because you're putting out 20H1 SDKs when 19H2 is still coming. So maybe
just
there
looks,
won't even be a 19H2 SDK. I don't know.
yeah, that makes sense. Maybe they're just not gonna add any new APIs or anything for that
Yeah,
release,
yeah.
which is
Well, I
interesting.
mean, again, I really don't think they're going to increase the major build number. It's going to be 18362 dot like 2000 or 3000 or something. And remember, because they only have to support 1903 for 18 months now. That and the full release is going to be 30 months. So they don't have to worry about increasing that minor build number for too much by 1903, if that made sense.
I think so.
So obviously if they increase the minor build number for 19H2, they have to start it at high enough so that 1903 won't catch up to it at some point.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? That would have been an easier way to say it. So I mean, I like they could probably start at 2000 because they only have to put out 18 months of updates for 1903.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. But they could also
Yeah.
just increase the major build number by a little bit. You remember when
I don't think
Windows
they will
10,
though. I don't think
maybe,
they're going to do 18363 or anything.
maybe not. I was just thinking because of when Windows 10 Mobile started dying, the Font Heroes update, they separated the Redstone 2 branches for PC and mobile, and they just increased a little bit on mobile and increased much more on PC. I was thinking about
A
that.
feature two for PC. They could call it
Exactly.
feature three.
Exactly. Something
Oh
like
God,
that.
they
That's what I
could.
was thinking of. I don't
You
know.
know,
It's
yeah, they could.
anything could happen.
They could do cumulative updates and insider testing, and then throw it all into one major build at the end.
Yeah,
Like a Surface Pack, really.
yeah, anything could happen at this point. We have no idea.
Yeah, yeah. But because of that, I really don't think there'll be major new features. Things like shipping a Linux kernel in Windows won't make it into an update like that.
Yeah, I don't think so. This is all probably leading up to next year. And that might also be why we have so many new things announced right now. So because maybe they're all going to come at once next year. That'd be nice. For once, you're not going to have to wait for like 3 update cycles for something to show
Yeah.
up.
All right,
So
it's time for Google I/O, which I talked a lot about Build. You're gonna have to talk more about this because I was at Build.
all right, so Google I/O had a few announcements. Most notable one probably the Pixel 3a. So
Yep.
that wasn't unexpected. We heard a lot about it leading up
Yeah, we talked
to.
about that last week. By the way, they beat Microsoft 2 phones to 0.
I don't
Tell
think
us about the
Microsoft.
Pixel 3a though.
So pretty much, Pixel 3a is just trying to make the Pixel 3 and 3XL cheaper by lowering some of the specs on the inside, but they're still
Yeah.
trying to offer a lot of the same experience. So you got all those camera features like night sight, which is very popular in the Pixel 3. You still have that. Like the sensor itself also seems to be similar. You got the 12 megapixel camera. It's all very similar. You still have the squeeze feature to summon Google Assistant, which I was pretty surprised at. I don't know why
Yeah.
they didn't include something like that, but
I don't
they
think it's a
did.
good feature. So I don't like anything where they want me to squeeze my phone because it just gets to be a pain.
Yeah, it's kind of strange, but it's there if you use it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Um, oh, they also shipping that AR experience in Google Maps. So if you're walking, you'll see instead of looking at the directions from that top-down view, you can look using like Street View when the directions are in front of you.
Yeah.
They demoed that last year, and now it's apparently going to be available for Pixel phones. And that's kind of cool.
One thing I
So
thought was great was just that they mentioned that the price of flagship phones is going up, and they mentioned that it's a problem. No other OEM has mentioned that, right?
yeah, you said that on Twitter too.
Yeah.
It's true. They're the first ones I hear that are saying that. And
Yeah.
that's interesting because even companies like OnePlus have been hiking their prices more and more with
Yeah.
each release. So it's interesting to see Google of all companies come out and say something like that.
Yeah, and
But
I can't wait to spend some. By the way, I have one. My I haven't opened it yet. I'm gonna make a video later on today, and I knew I was getting one, and I was in Seattle, and I couldn't wait to get home and actually get my
uh,
hands on this thing.
so yeah, but Google of course isn't just giving stuff away. So you're getting downgraded to a Snapdragon 670 CPU
Right.
chipset. So that's a little not quite on par with the 845 on the Pixel 3. It still has an OLED display, which is nice, but I'm guessing it's not the same kind of panel that's on the Pixel 3 because they have to cut
Yeah,
corners somewhere. You
they
can't
did.
just
I
put,
mean, obviously, it's like half the price. So
yeah. So, but it's interesting. It's a very interesting offer. Um, Hopefully, more companies have this idea, or you can offer like a flagship level experience for a lower price,
yeah, I mean,
or
Motorola
all.
kind of tries to go that route with the Moto G with that with just value for money, and it's also that like that's kind of about good enough because the flagship experience today really provides more than just about anybody needs. So Google's promising a great camera with this with night sight, and if it can actually deliver a camera that's on par with flagship cameras at this price point, that's a really big deal.
Yeah, because I think that's the most important part of a smartphone for a lot of people. A
Yeah.
camera, people just really want a good camera. And night sight is, like
Well,
I said, it's very popular.
it's a
So
differentiating feature, right? Because if you don't care about the camera, and a lot of people don't, um, all you really need is a 1080p OLED display and a decent processing power, and you could get that in a phone at this price point.
yeah, that's the camera is usually where a lot of phones that this cheap, cut corners. That's usually where you miss out the most when you start going
Yeah.
down in price. It's also a problem with OnePlus. The camera is not as good as most other flagships. So if they can deliver that on this phone, I think that's a very big deal for them and for the industry as a whole.
Sure. Sure. Let's talk about Android Q. What do we got in Android Q? Because I have no idea.
So I didn't write this, but so we have support for foldable devices. That's not exactly
Wait,
new. We
did
know
I
it is
write it?
coming. No, it
I
was
didn't write it, right? Oh, thank
Abe.
God.
I don't.
I thought for a second that you were going to tell me I wrote it, even though I have no idea what it says, because that is entirely possible with a week like this week.
No, it's not that bad. You're not crazy. So,
All right, go on. What do we got?
okay, so we have
Uh,
support for foldable devices. That's not new. We knew that was coming.
yeah.
And it has that stuff like screen continuity and app continuity that Samsung announced for the Galaxy Fold, which wasn't coming with Android Q. So basically, Google was just implementing features from that
Right.
experience into Android itself. So that's nice. They say they have multiple foldable devices coming this year. I don't know if they're just counting the Fold and the Huawei Mate X, or if there's something we haven't heard of. Anything's possible.
Well,
Uh,
they did say from what do they say from many OEMs, right?
yeah,
Multiple OEMs. So I'm sure it's not just Huawei and Samsung. I have no doubt that there's more.
it's very likely the way they worded it. I think
Yeah.
it has to be. So then there's features like live caption, which I wrote about separately. So it's a it's a thing where they basically caption videos automatically. So you have a video playing on your screen. It doesn't have to be for any specific service. If you have a video on your phone, if you're playing through the Photos app, it's going to be captioned automatically. You can do that. This is for people who have, hearing impairments and stuff
Right.
like that. So
That's
that's
cool.
cool.
And they said
Uh,
that it can all be done offline too.
Yeah, they also show that working offline. I don't.
Yeah.
That's just device intelligence, so that's good. They also showed off in that context. They showed off a prototype of it working with calls, where you can have the call transcribed, and you could reply with text, and then the text would be synthesized into voice for the other person to hear. So that's kind
Yeah.
of interesting, but that's not coming yet. That's just in research phase for now. So moving on from that, we have smart replies being integrated into notifications themselves. So you can, how Google sometimes suggests stuff like you can say sure or just agree with something. Like when you get an
Oh
email, you
yeah.
can just say thanks for that. So now they're integrating that into Android notifications, and you can not just Google apps can use it now. So if you get a message in any messaging app, they can implement those smart replies into the notification. You can just reply immediately from the notification with those quick bits. So that's
Pretty
also
cool.
interesting.
Yeah.
There's dark theme, of course. You've also heard of
Yeah.
this.
Is
It's
this the
about
first time that they actually publicly announced it? Because we've known it was coming for a while. I remember it was XDA that found it first. Um, is this the first time that Google actually said it? I think it is, right?
I think so. I think they've
Yeah.
never really come out and say they're gonna have dark theme. Some people noticed with Android, the first developer betas, that if you enable battery saver, it automatically turns on dark theme, and that's
Oh,
confirmed too. So when you turn on battery saver, it switches to dark theme automatically, because Google keeps insisting on this idea that dark colors save battery in OLED. And I remember you saying
yeah.
a while back that when you tested it with Windows Phone, that did not happen for you. So that's
I have
interesting.
not been able to, well, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm saying I have not been able to prove it with battery tests. And I have a Pixel 3 XL and I'll try it out. I'll run a battery test on light mode and I'll run a battery test on dark mode and we'll see.
So yeah, they keep saying that. Let's see. Let's see, because we've heard about this for a while. So I was very surprised when you told me that you tested it and didn't see any difference.
Yeah.
So there's that, and hope it's about time because Google has been implementing dark mode into some of its apps. Even if you're on Android Pie right now, the phone app, Messages app, YouTube, Contacts, some of those apps already have dark theme, but you kind of have to set them individually. You have to go to settings
Right.
for each app. Sometimes they propagate, sometimes they don't. It's kind of strange. I don't know what's up with that.
So do you think that when you could set a system-wide dark theme that all these apps will just turn it on by default?
Well, if they do a better job than Microsoft.
Nice.
hopefully. Hope-
I set him up and you just knocked him down with that one. Great job.
so hopefully.
Yeah.
So then there's also privacy updates. They say they're gonna be privacy settings in like the forefront of the settings app. They're gonna have like a section just for privacy stuff. That's nice. They have a whole array of privacy settings, even outside of Android. It's like self-deleting history for activity history and location history. You can set a timer for a timer like 3 months or 18 months for it to disappear automatically. Incognito mode for more apps like maps, search, and stuff. You can just turn on incognito mode so Google doesn't track you when you're using it. Stuff like that. A lot of stuff around privacy, which is good for Google because they're not very well
They're not
known.
exactly known as a privacy company, right?
So
Yeah.
that's good for them. And they
Yeah.
announced more improvements to OS updates. So they've been working on this for a while with Project Travel and more updates related
Yeah.
to the update system. And now, so in Android Pie, one thing that's changed is that most of the update process is done with the phone on. You just have to reboot once, and it's mostly a normal reboot. It just like shuts down using the files that you had before and boots back up with the new files, and
Sure.
that's it. So what they're changing now is making that even easier, so that there's more modules to the experience, and you can actually update them without even having to reboot the phone at all.
You
So
talking
that's
about
nice.
Project Mainstream? Is that what they're?
I'm not sure if that's the name they gave it, but it's possible. I don't remember.
That's the thing with the security updates, right? Where you can,
Yeah, exactly. So they're making it modular like that
yeah. So
because
that's cool. Let's talk
that's
about the
great.
beta. I'm
Oh yeah,
pumped. I am so pumped for this.
so there's a new beta version, which I think includes most of the news they announced for most of these features. I think the new beta has all of that. And
Yeah.
what's really interesting about it, so last year at I/O, Google opened up the beta program for non-Pixel devices for the first time. And we had stuff
Yeah.
like the Nokia 7 Plus, the OnePlus 6, the Essential phone. We had about, I think, 11 devices or so. And this year, Google's going even further, and they're adding 21 devices total.
Yeah. 21.
If you
That's
count
including the 6 pixels.
exactly, so it's 21 devices, including 6 pixels.
I think that's so cool. Well, you know, I think that some of them are a little more mainstream than the ones last year. Because I remember going down that list and being like, who has these things? Except for maybe the One Plus. But now we got the One 6T, the LG G8. Still no Samsung on there, which I don't know if that'll ever change.
Yeah, I don't think Samsung really wants to adhere to this stuff, because this
Yeah.
implies that you want to work with like the core Android things, and I don't think Samsung wants to. They're so focused on their own interface and ecosystem.
But
I
by the way, speaking of someone that's so focused on their own interface, their own ecosystem, and has a very thick software layer, Huawei's on the list this year with the
that
Mate
was
20
surprising.
Pro. Yeah,
That was surprising too. I actually thought when I saw the name Huawei, I thought maybe it'd be the P30, but turned out it's the Mate 20. So
it would be
uh,
nice if it was like the P30 Pro, just because now I have to use both.
But yeah, that's great. It's 21 phones now. It's awesome. A lot of them are not very well known. You still have the Realme stuff. These
Yeah,
brands are more
Xiaomi.
popular. These
Yeah,
are more popular in other markets that are not ours. What I
right.
was surprised at
Vivo,
is
Techno Spark 3.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I didn't know that was a thing until
yeah, me
just
neither.
so I was surprised that the Essential phone was on this because the Essential phone came out in 2017, I think,
Right.
with
I
Android
don't know.
Nougat. With Android
Who
Nougat.
even knows what's going on with Essential and their phone?
That yeah, it's so surprising because you keep hearing about bankruptcy, they're going shutting down, they're rebooting, they're not making a phone, then they're making a phone, and they're
This
still
does, yeah, go ahead.
part of this. So
Yeah, this does more or less prove that they're still alive in some sense. They're still actively supporting their phone, um, especially with new betas. By the way, but if you've got one of these third party devices, Google's not providing the beta to you, that you have to go to your OEM to get it, and I'm sure it works differently with each OEM. So Essential does have a big part in this. It's not just they check the box on a form somewhere.
Yeah, because like you said, it has to be downloaded from each form, from each
Yeah.
manufacturer. So
Right.
they each distribute it differently because I guess they can integrate it with their own parts of Android. If they have a skin or something, they can work on the integration and deliver that all together. It's not like you're getting a stock build of Android through the beta. It's still
Right.
gonna be the same experience. It's just changing what's underneath it.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty cool
that's
though.
yeah, it is pretty nice. I was very sad that the Nokia phone they chose was the 8.1 because I have the 7.1. So,
Yeah,
oh
and they
well.
don't typically add more to this list over time, do they?
No, I don't think they did that last year.
Yeah,
Um,
so
I don't look again. That's just how my life is now. So
it's because the Nokia 7.1 is in Portugal.
it is because you know what? The 8.1 is not in Portugal. The 8.1 is
Oh,
so they're just doing this
confirmed.
specific. They're just doing this specifically to annoy me. That's the only explanation at this point.
Yep, that's clearly. Yeah, I've got a few phones on this list, and I'm looking forward to trying out, particularly on the Huawei, just because I've never ran a beta on a Huawei like that before.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I
Yeah,
I wonder if they're also shipping a new version of EMUI or something. Probably not, but maybe.
well, I'll find out. I'm home now, so I can finally try this stuff out. All I brought with me to build was an iPhone and a Huawei P30 Pro. So I didn't bring extra phones. I didn't bring a Pixel with me, although I probably should have. I could have installed that. I knew there was going to be a beta for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that. Oh well, it can
I
still
tried to
be
travel
adapted.
light this year.
Oh, did you
I
end up just taking the always connected PC? I know you talked about it on Twitter. You were just
No,
gonna take it.
I didn't bring an always connected PC. I was gonna. I have four cellular PCs, and just for anyone listening, when I say always connected PC, I'm not talking about a Snapdragon. I was gonna bring an Intel that's made by HP, and it's an EliteBook 840 G5, and it's got a Core i7, 32 gigs of RAM, terabyte SSD, a 4 gigabyte AMD Radeon GPU, and 4G LTE. It's awesome, but I feel very guilty bringing devices on trips that I'm not currently reviewing because obviously I have to spend time with the device I'm reviewing. So I brought a Lenovo ThinkPad T490, the 1440p Dolby Vision display, 16 gigs of RAM, i7, terabyte SSD, and it held up the whole time. It was nice.
Yeah, you like the ThinkPads, if
I
I
love ThinkPads.
remember.
And I as much as I wanted to bring the HP, I ended up having to bring one that at least one that I'm currently reviewing. So that it's a good device though. It's solid.
So you gotta stay tuned for your review now. So
Yeah.
just just keep
Yeah,
checking Neowin, guys.
yeah. So I mean, well, this is the first year that they've actually offered 1440p and Dolby Vision on the T series, and the T series it's the most popular ThinkPad out of any ThinkPad. So I got to spend some time with it this week, and it was good. So Android usage. Let's talk about
So
Android usage.
all right,
Not that anyone
so
really cares about the actual usage, but this is the first time that it's been updated since um, October 26th.
oh wow, that's a long time. Okay,
Yeah,
I
usually
didn't
they do
realize.
it monthly.
Yeah, that's kind of strange. I guess they didn't want to be ashamed of how low their Pi usage is because it's still
Yeah,
at just
but
10%.
but they put up these pathetic numbers every month prior to that. Why? What was the difference? I really enjoyed up until a few days ago that I could say Android Pie is on less than 0.1% of devices, according to Google's latest usage report, because the latest usage report was 6 months old.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, so now it's on 10.4%, which is probably about what we would expect this far in. And
Yeah, it's
yeah,
still pretty slow as it always is with Android.
yeah.
It's the fragmentation is kind of a problem. Uh,
Oreo's on just over 28%, which is also known as one Windows 10 version 1809.
exactly.
It's all pretty fragmented as always with Android.
Yeah, hopefully Google can improve that with this modularity they're implementing into the system.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Project Treble, hopefully it rolls out in more devices. I mean, we're seeing more Android Q beta, so
Yeah,
hopefully that turns into
Project,
more Android Q updates.
yeah, Project Travel is mandatory if you're shipping Android 8.0 or higher with the
Yeah,
Google
and
Play
new devices, right?
services. Exactly. The thing
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
the fact that you have Project Travel doesn't mean that the manufacturer is willing to update it anyways. I think that's the
Right.
problem.
Right. Well,
Companies
it's
like
it's also
Samsung.
like this is shipping in new devices. When did they announce Project Treble? That was a year ago at I/O, 2 years
I
ago.
I think it was 2 years ago because it started being shipped with
Okay.
Oreo. I think it started being
Okay.
mandatory
So
with Oreo.
right. Okay. And then you could upgrade to Pi. So thing is, new devices are kind of getting upgraded already. All the stuff that we're seeing, the 6.9% on KitKat, 14.5 still on Lollipop. Those are a lot of those are older devices, older low end devices that obviously did not ship with Treble. So to get higher numbers on Pi or Q, I think this stuff is going to take time before it actually turns into real usage share and actually makes a real difference.
Yeah, because you have to understand that Android phones are not like iPhones where people will buy
Mm.
them have a certain capability to buy new phones every now and then. A lot of people using Android phones have cheap Android phones and they don't upgrade for a long time.
That's true.
So there still have a lot of people with KitKat and Lollipop and stuff that they're never gonna
See,
upgrade until the phone probably breaks the time.
0.3%. 0.3% are still on gingerbread. So there's that. They said what, 2.5 billion Android devices now? What's 0.3% of 2.5 billion? It's still a lot.
Yeah, I don't know math, but
Yeah,
but
I'm not,
yeah,
not gonna plug that in either.
that's still a lot of people. So that's something to consider. Once those devices start to phase out, maybe you'll see that change, but that's gonna take a while.
And and they will. I mean, the thing is, I, I've been covering these usage reports for a while, and what usually happens is that it goes down, it goes down, it goes down, and then it kind of levels off around that 0.3%. Like these are just people that are just either using their device and they're never going to upgrade or they just have one. I don't know. But
Yeah,
that number doesn't at this point it just moves very very slowly before gingerbread actually comes off the list. But things like nougat and marshmallow and lollipop, we'll see rapid declines from those until it gets very low.
that's true. They've been transitioning, I think, maybe even faster than usual since travel became a thing. You know, you don't have
Yeah,
that many on Oreo anymore. I mean, it's still 28%,
that's
but
true.
you'd probably
Well,
expect it to be more.
yeah, yeah. All right, last thing on the list is Intel Ice Lake.
So
We can.
finally, we have a sort of solid time frame. It took only 3 years, but we're finally here. So
Yeah,
the 10 nanometer processors are shipping to manufacturers in June, and
so they say.
so they say. Hopefully this time they stick to it.
Yeah.
And then those computers with those processors will start being in shelves in the holiday season. This they had announced earlier this year.
So they
And
haven't actually announced any Ice Lake products.
no, not specifically. They just said that
Okay.
they're just saying this processor technology is coming, but no real products are. I don't know when they're planning to do that, but
Yeah. Well, obviously between
oh.
now and June, right? I assume that they can stick to this. I assume that 10 nanometers Ice Lake. if you announce something a month out like this, it's I assume they're ready to do it.
Yeah, at this point, I don't think they have that sort of margin to delay it again. They
Yeah.
have to be ready.
The
There.
other part, I don't know.
Oh,
Go on.
I was
Tell
just
us
gonna.
about the other part.
Oh, I was just gonna read the improvements they're promising for 10 nanometers because it's
Oh,
interesting.
okay.
They're probably 3 times the wireless speed, 2 times the
Yeah.
speed for video encoding and graphics, and between 2.5 and 3 times the speed for artificial intelligence compared to the previous generation. So those are some pretty significant improvements, considering.
Compared to the previous, okay.
So I don't know what generation they're talking about because they haven't announced any products. I don't know if this is U series, H series, but
Well, it would have to be compared to eighth generation. Um,
well,
I mean, I imagine U series because that and possibly Y series as well because they announced ninth gen H series already. I think we talked about that last week, and they've announced pretty much all the ninth gen desktop processors. A lot of switching from 14 nanometers to 10 nanometers has to do with efficiency, so that will help battery life on those mobile processors like U series and Y series. So I think would be a good place to start.
yeah, that is the most logical place. But it's interesting because it's pretty significant when you consider how much the 8th generation U series already improved because it doubled the number of cores. So
Yeah,
this is a pretty big improvement if you compare it to an 8th generation processor, which was already a big improvement by itself.
yeah, sure,
So it'll be
sure. So
interesting to see how well that does.
it's good because so long for so long we didn't get real improvements. You know, when you went from sixth generation Skylake to seventh gen Kaby Lake, there wasn't much to talk about there. So we got a big improvement going from seventh to eighth gen, and now we'll have a big improvement going from eighth to ninth gen.
Yeah, that doesn't usually happen. Usually you have that TikTok cycle where you have one generation that improved performance more, and then another one that just minor stuff with power efficiency or whatever it was.
Yeah,
So now you have these two big upgrades in a row. So that's nice.
yeah. So you want then they also promised 7 nanometers,
Yeah,
right?
they're talking about 7 nanometers for 2021.
That I don't
Uh,
believe. I don't believe it for a second. I'll believe it when I see it, and I don't think we'll see it in 2021.
we have reasons to be skeptical. After
To put it lightly.
After what happened to 10 nanometers, they have a lot of reasons to be skeptical. But if they do follow through, there's also some nice stuff. They say don't deliver twice the scaling, whatever that means.
Yeah.
20% more performance per watt, so energy savings, obviously, that's what you expect. And 4 times reduction of the design run complexity, or whatever that means as well. I'm not making processors. Then it's the first time they're using extreme ultraviolet lithography, which they say will map drive scaling for multiple node generations. So hopefully my interpretation of this could be very wrong because I have no idea how this stuff works. But hopefully that means they can continue more quickly shrinking the sizes. They don't have the same kind of problems. If the node size reduces again, they won't have the same kind of delays that we had in 10 nanometers. That'd be
Okay.
nice. Oh.
I'll pretend I believe it.
I'm just
I just
hopeful.
yeah. I mean, for those that don't know, 10 nanometers was supposed to ship in I believe 2016. We're years late on this, and it's finally happening. It looks like it is finally happening. All the ninth gen processors we've seen so far are 14 nanometers, and so the rest of them, I guess, are going to be 10 nanometers. It's hard to believe that they can get to 7 nanometers in such a short period of time now, no matter what they say.
Yeah, it's not gonna be it. We can't take the word for it that easily after what happened. But
Well,
I'm hopeful. I'm just a hopeful person in general.
yeah,
Let's.
so optimistic. I mean,
So
they could, there's Moore's law, right? And they've Moore's law has stalled, and they've been at 14 nanometers because when they announced the newest U series processors, they compared it to devices that came out 3 years ago because they said these were the last to support Windows 7. But those devices they were comparing it to were still 14 nanometers. Usually when they compare it to previous generations. By the way, when it says previous generation, they could just mean 14 nanometers. But yeah, usually it's like a 5-year thing where it's a 14 versus 22 nanometers. When you're looking back a few years and you're still on the same node size, that's just weird.
Yeah, it's been 5 years since 14 nanometers. That's a long time. And I mean, we've seen.
What was the first one? Was it Broadwell?
I am not sure. I wasn't informed at that point, so
yeah,
I don't remember. That was a while back.
Yeah, it's Broadwell. That's 5th gen.
Oh,
it's
okay.
5th generation core. Yeah.
Okay, so it's been some time.
It has been some time.
Yeah. Hopefully, maybe the idea is that they had these hurdles to get them to shrink to 10 nanometers, and maybe if you manage to get over them for 10 nanometers, it also makes the process easier going forward.
I'd love to believe that. I would love to believe that.
Either way, even if it does come, the first product they're promising is a general purpose GPU, which is meant for data center AI and high performance computing tasks. So I don't think this is going to be a product that most people won't be using anyway. So that probably until 2022 at least for general consumers to start seeing this in devices. Even if this schedule is to be believed, I think it will be a while.
Right. All right. That's all we got.
So
we talked about a lot, and how long we've been going?
An hour and 10 minutes, I think, an hour or so. So nice. that was a lot of news.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a busy week. It's not going to be. We do have some cool stuff for next week. I do just want to reiterate that because I mentioned it last week. There's no big events going on, but we do have some cool stuff. And then of course we got the OnePlus 7 Pro event. Do they have 2 devices planned still? Because all I hear about is the Pro.
No, but they do have to, because this week they actually announced that they're going to have UFS 3.0 storage, and I thought it was interesting because Samsung promised that for the Galaxy Fold they were going to be the first ones to use it.
Right.
But now with the delay,
the Galaxy Fold is folded.
Exactly. Yeah. So now with that, OnePlus is going to be the first one to have UFS 3.0. And but what they say is that let me just bring it up because I'm not sure what wording they use now. But they said that the OnePlus 7 series or family will have
series. Okay.
Yeah, the OnePlus 7 series will include the UFS 3.0. So even the cheaper device, the OnePlus 7, will apparently have it based on the wording they're using on Twitter. So that's nice. And yeah. I would have thought they would only do it for the Pro, to be honest, because that's all the rage now.
Yeah.
But it's good that's for both. And I'm interested to see how well that performs because, it's the first time we're going to have UFS 3.0.
Right.
So.
Cool. That'll be fun. I'll they said they're going to send me a device. They didn't tell me which one if they have 2. So I'll be at the event next week.
Okay, so whichever one they send you, can you just ask them to send me the other one because I want something.
They probably don't send to Portugal, to be honest. Yeah. All right, so let's I guess we'll see everybody next week. We got some. You'll see. You'll see. It's some cool stuff. All right. All right.
We got some surprises for us. All right. Have a good one, everyone.